Hi, I'm Austin Jarrett and this is episode 2 of our lawn renovation adventure, which we really want to share with you. Let's start with why we were dissatisfied with our Allett lawn. To start with, we had quite a lot of weed grasses, Poa annua and Yorkshire fog and all of the types of mismatches of seeds, which I don't think is unusual in a lawn. We all know how difficult it is to keep those weed grasses at bay. It was also then very difficult to match repairs, whether it be dog pea patches or killing weeds and then replacing it with a seed mixture, because we didn't really know what we'd got, we didn't know what to patch up with. So even when we did patch up, then again it didn't match up with the rest of the lawn, and we felt we could make a bit more effort in that. We've also got another quite large lawn that we don't normally use for videos that is very old. I'm guessing it's 100 years old and is extremely thatchy, and the grass varieties that are in there are just awful. So we again wanted to bring that lawn in to give us a wider range of choices on where we shoot our videos. So this is the really old lawn. So this house is quite some age and there's been a lawn here for quite some time. This house was renovated in 1888, so the lawn could easily have been here in that time, sort of 130 years old. And it is really thatchy, really thatchy, and it has really never had good grass growth on it. We had the choice of actually stripping this off, which is probably what we should have done, but what we did do was, as I said, for all the reasons of speed, we've overseeded this, and the seed is actually sitting in the thatch. We did this first, and the results so far are looking sort of patchy. This is a 4 cultivar ryegrass mix in here, so we would expect to get very early germination. But we sowed this at the end of March and it was really cold and we were still having frosts weeks later. But in terms of the thatch layer that we've got here, if I just take a sample out of here, the thatch layer itself is getting on for 1 inch deep or more. I'm sort of looking at this sort of level of thatch. And so the seeding at 1/2 inch is sitting in the thatch. When it's been dry, of course the thatch dries right out, and when it rains the thatch sits really wet, and a lot of the time it's like having that blanket over the soil and stopping the soil from actually getting wet and getting the benefit of the rain, or it's keeping it dry as it protects it from the rain. Whichever way, you can see the slits in here. Not a tremendous amount of growth out of this, but let's see how this goes and let's call it part of the experiment. So some of the lawns are a bit lumpy, some of them are a bit thatchy, some of them have got moss, and particularly on the old lawn where the grass plants have got no vigour in them whatsoever, we felt that by doing a renovation we could put all of that right. So why are we creating this entire season of videos? We thought you would enjoy the trial that we're doing. This is, to be absolutely clear, this is not an authoritative how to renovate your lawn, but it is how we are renovating our lawn, and I'm hoping that we will learn from, as you always do in these things, learn from some successes and also learn from some failures as well. So we are a lawnmower manufacturer, and we know that different types of grass varieties make a difference to the mowing. They really do, and make a difference to the lawn. So we were really wanting to, during this renovation, try and have a look at the lots of different varieties of grasses that are available to us in our English cool season climate. We also wanted to have a look as well, once the grass was established, at how our verticuts and scarifiers worked within these different types of grasses. Some produce more thatch, some of them tend to grow in a more clumpy type of style, so they need thinning out as well to make sure that we end up with a level and even lawn and make that look really attractive. So who knows? We could be developing product range from the learning that we get going here, but in particular the advice that we give on how the cartridges might be used might also be updated from the learning that we get from this. At Allett we say, one of our statements is that when you buy an Allett you're buying more than just a mower. So I'm hoping that we will be able to give better advice having gone through this lawn renovation journey as well. And a lot of our customers buy a cylinder mower because they want to up their game on their lawn, and of course then they get bitten by the bug like we do, and they want to know more. They want to know more about levelling and overseeding and renovation. So I have an apology for our international customers, those that are in warm season grasses. We are a cool season and that's all we can grow on this lawn. But I wonder whether if we were to get a lot of interest from subscribers for this season, that maybe some of our keen customers might like to do a similar experiment in warm season grasses. That would be really great. And if you're interested, please just put a comment below and we'll get in contact with you, because that would be really useful to so many of our other customers about how to use our products. The biggest reason that we're doing this though is that when we came to make some choices about what sort of lawn seed should we use for our renovation, and I've mentioned this before, the biggest reason is the seed guys are really brilliant at what they do, and they're really expert at what they grow and the seeds that they produce. It's absolutely amazing. But what I do really have to say is when we came to choose the seed mixtures, we see photographs of bags of seed, we see sliding footballers on lovely green grass, but actually it really doesn't tell us an awful lot. And they do have an awful lot of data available, but I have to say it just didn't really mean anything to me, because I'm not a groundsman and I'm not a biologist, and I don't really probably understand the terminology that they're using. What I do understand though is a close-up photograph of the different mixtures with a hand brush through it, and then see the thatch and then get an understanding of how much work needs to go into each one of these swards. If I can see what a good colour means when it's stood next to 5 other varieties, then it gives me a really good comparator when they start talking about fast growing, early establishment, good colour, great winter performance. Then when I see them comparatively, that I'm hoping that we'll be able to share that so that you too understand what it is the seed manufacturers are actually saying to us when they use those descriptions. So this is a great opportunity for us to try out and compare, to use our Allett lawn and also see the results that we get, and it's for our soil and for our climate. So the results that I'm going to give are going to be actually opinions, and they're also going to be based on the experience I've had in this year with this soil type and the weather that was thrown at us. So it really is not going to be highly authoritative, but I'm hoping that we're all going to be able to get some learning out of this, and then we'll see how these mixtures compare with the descriptions in the brochures. So let me talk you through what we've done with the Allett lawn, just so that you understand the process so far. So we are 2 weeks now since we seeded this grass, and you can see that it's starting to come through quite nicely. So the process was, back at the end of March, it was really cold, and actually April ended up being a really dry month as well, unusually dry. So what we did was, the first thing was to get a cylinder mower, drop it down as low as we possibly could, and we scalped off as much of the green grass as we possibly could, just to reduce the amount of organic matter that there was on the surface that we were going to be working with. So after giving the lawn a really close scalp, the next stage was to kill off everything that we had. We had so many weeds, we didn't know what we had, so we wanted to start with a blank canvas. So we used a product with glyphosate in it, and glyphosate kills all the leaves and the roots right down to the bottom, so that 100% killed off the lawn. We waited a period of time, and we did that for 2 reasons. One, I wasn't quite sure how good and effective the spraying was going to be, and it takes a while for the grass to go yellow to see whether you got any misses. So actually, as it turned out, we didn't get any misses, but we weren't highly confident with our spraying skills at that stage. If you're not confident with chemicals, and glyphosate in the UK it can be used by consumers and as a household chemical, and in some countries I know that is much more difficult, and the laws are changing about the use of glyphosate. But you can get a contractor in still to use glyphosate in a professional capacity, I think, if you're not allowed to buy it yourself as a homeowner. But it guarantees 100% kill on contact, and it kills right the way down to the roots. The other thing that glyphosate doesn't do is it doesn't kill seeds or have an effect on seeds at all, but it does kill right down to the roots. After we left that for a couple of weeks, we then, with all the dead material, we just used actually an Allett mower with a scarifier cartridge in it to lift and remove a bit more of the organic matter as well, and where possible to expose some soil so we could get the seed really into the soil. We took the opportunity. I've got a few hollows and humps and bumps in this lawn, so it was a great opportunity at that time while the lawn was scraped really low that actually we could use soil and sand mixture and a lute and fill in some of those holes. Some of them were just where the lawn had settled over time, and in other places it was where paths had been removed, and again the infill had settled down, and I wanted to get that levelled up. There's nothing that quite looks like a perfectly levelled lawn. Once the levelling of the lawn had been done and we'd filled in the low spots, we then chose a method of overseeding into the dead sward that we had. And we did that instead of cultivating the whole surface and then seeding into probably what would have been a better seed bed. But the reasons we chose the overseeding was we had a limited amount of time to get this job done, and we'd got over 800 square metres of not just one big expanse to get done. And we felt the overseeding was going to be a quicker method to work with. Also, when you start to cultivate, you can also start to fluff up the soil, and then it all settles back down again all uneven, whereas at least if we're sowing into a solid and time-served sward, that everything's pretty much settled to a level and isn't going to start moving around. When you start to do cultivations as well, of course you're lifting and churning up the top of the surface, and that does expose seeds that have been dormant below the surface. We just killed everything off. The seeds are untouched by glyphosate, and then we'd end up with some regermination, which would have taken some time, or if we just seeded, the weeds would have been in the sward, and that was something that we were really keen not to have happen. The other thing was, if we'd cultivated the soil surface and created a seed bed, that we were concerned that if it did go dry and we needed to start to do a lot of irrigation during that critical period of germination, that we'd get a lot of wash off and that seed would redistribute itself as it floated with the water. And we were worried about how actually we were going to manage that, whereas when we're overseeding into, even though it's a dead sward, then we weren't going to be getting that soil and seed movement to the same extent. We chose to use a serious overseeder, a Ryan Mataway overseeder. It's really a professional machine. They generally cost thousands of pounds. I have to say we picked one up in the winter season when machinery tends to be a little bit cheaper, and we bought a really old machine, probably 25 years old plus, which was in fair condition. We changed all the belts on it ready for this exercise, and we paid about £1,600 for it. We'll probably sell it on again after this experiment is finished. But you can hire these machines. The Mataway is exceptionally good, robust, solid machine. It will jump over roots and it will keep a very consistent depth because it's quite heavy. If you've got a small garden though, I have to say that without wanting to sound sexist, this is a real man's machine. You really have to maul this machine around your garden, and you really have to want to do it. And you'll see that in the video shots we're showing you now. So the machine can be hired really quite easily, and you can, if you really want to know who you can hire it from, we can give you some names. Just ask the question down in the comments below. We could have done a lighter scarification, distributed seed, but we chose not to do that because we really just wanted to get this job done once and get it done properly. You can see we've used the overseeder here. We seeded all of the seed mixtures at 40 to 50 grams per square metre, and they were all sown between 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch deep, 12 millimetres to 19 millimetres deep. we're starting to get the results now. We're 2 weeks on, and already the ryegrass trial plots are starting to look significantly further ahead than the fescue bent plots are, as you would expect right at the beginning. And that doesn't mean that the germination percentage is better, it just means that it's earlier at this stage, so we're getting these something looking like green again. This is a seeder that we used, very heavy duty machine, and it relies on cutting slots into the ground 2 inches apart, and you can adjust the depth. It then uses discs to open up the slot and then meter the seed from the seeding from the seed hopper here, and it feeds them down the tubes into the side of the disc, and that drops then down into the slot that we cut with the blades at the front end. And if I tip this machine up, you can actually see what's happening underneath. This is the rotating blade. They rotate in this direction to keep a nice clean empty slot, and then these are the discs which aren't driven, that just open up the slot, and the seed is dispensed from the tube just down the side of the disc and into the slot. That's closed up again when you tread on that slot, and that gives good seed to soil contact, and you can see this whole lawn is just covered in lines of seed where the maximum germination is always happening where the slot was cut. We've also done another small trial that on a small patch with the fine turf 1 quality, and we've done that in a slightly different way. It's just a small plot, and I was really interested to try compost as a seed covering on just a straightforward broadcast. We did broadcasting of seed on the surface and covering with compost using a compost spreader, and we also mixed the grass seed with the compost and used that as a spreader as well. And we thought that might just be an unusual trial just to see whether that is actually a valid method of overseeding. By giving that seed the covering with the compost, we think really increases the chances of greater levels of germination and probably reduces the amount of bird damage that we get as well. So we've just tried that as well, we'll have a look at that in a few weeks' time to see how successful that's been. Meanwhile, thanks ever so much. Hope that you're going to watch episode 3, where we look at the seed trial in the tubs and understand a little bit better what the 6 different seed mixtures are that we're using.